All right, we are live. Thanks everybody for coming in today. We have the man that everybody likes to hear from with us today, and that is Paul from Freight Connect. It's fr8connect.com. Paul has one of the toughest jobs that there is, and that's selling freight and helping smaller trucking companies or really any trucking company connect with direct shippers. He's helped me with that, and I'm grateful for that. And he just got back from a long vacation here. So you
Mm.
want to tell us a little bit about that first, about your adventures overseas?
Yeah, adventures. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, man, it's good to see you again. It's been, gosh, last time we saw each other, was it
It's a
at the
truck show.
show?
Yeah.
The show?
Last time we did a show was before that even.
Yeah. So we saw each other at the trucking show, and that was in March, I guess, or April. I can't remember. So whenever it was, we were out of town, and so now I just got back from overseas, which was really, really, really good. I went to Nairobi, Kenya, and yeah, man, it was for 3 weeks, and I do it again and again and again and again. There was all kinds of
Nairobi, Kenya. That doesn't
things.
exactly sound like the British Isles or the Bahamas. What's the attraction to go to Kenya?
Well, British had something to do with it at some point, but yeah, it is. I have family over there, and
Okay.
my dad is from there, and so there's a ton of family that I hadn't seen in years, and I mean, when I was 8, I think it was the last time I was over there. So to go there as an adult, and things have changed, obviously. I mean, even within the past 5 years, because my parents have been going back and forth there. Um, Man, it is wonderful. There's some things, if you know the locals, right, you get to experience that. Then you get to experience some of the touristy stuff. And we went to the east coast of Africa, which is the Indian Ocean. So we went to a resort there and spent 3 days there. And uh, yeah, I'm ready to go back. The beach was nice. The people were nice. The food was good. And it was just good. It was good.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Anything make a real impression on you? Um,
Yes. Yeah, there was a lot of things, man. There was, well, I tell you what, one of the things that I tell people is that what I find is that no matter where you go, people are people. You know, people are trying to make it. When we talk about the economy, we talk about it here in the US and how bad it is or whatever the case is. But there's impact elsewhere, in terms of how the world economy is. I mean, people are having it tough elsewhere. Over there, they just had Labor Day I guess a couple of weeks ago, I think on a Monday. And Labor Day over there it's real. I mean, they talk about it all day long. They have protests. It's like a 2-day event. It even goes on for the week, but it's a topic, that people talk about.
so it's not just an excuse to take another day off of work like it is here.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. I think unemployment might be 19%, I think. Is-
Wow.
Yeah, is where it's at, I think, if I remember correctly. But so don't quote me on that. I have to look it up. But the numbers that we look at, they look at the same numbers, right? They're, the U.S. definitely has close ties to Kenya. And unfortunately, that causes them to have to deal with certain things that they wouldn't normally have to deal with. There's been terrorist bombings over there, but there's some things that they have to deal with. But they know the relationship, understand their history, understand American history really well, right?
Hmm.
And it's just good to talk to people. You see people hustling all over, just trying to make it, and not just trying to make it, but I mean, they want to do things for their family, and it's really encouraging to see it because it takes away all the stuff about me.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it was really, really a great experience. And the last thing too, again, that's where my dad's roots are from, right? And so I got to really experience a lot of stuff and understand some things, and it was just really good. It just wasn't long enough. It wasn't long enough.
Did you find yourself, being that the world you're in over here is the freight world, did you find yourself looking at trucks over there and trying to figure out how freight's moving and what's going on?
Well, guess what? So, where I stayed, right? It's called. It's right off. It's on Waiyaki Way. It's a major city, and it further down, I think east, going toward the airport, Jomo Kenyatta Airport, International Airport. Is that east? Sun goes down. West. West. Sorry. No, east. West. West. Okay, so west. No, east. East. You can tell I was turned around. So going east on Waiyaki Way, that is where they had built an expressway. And this thing, they said, saves like, over an hour's worth of your time, just getting back and forward, So, but the reason I bring that up is I saw no trucks.
Really?
I probably saw two trucks, I think a water truck and maybe another truck, but that was it. And I questioned it. I was like, I don't see any trucks. There's a lot of buses and things like that. But they said that there's another road that is strictly for trucks. It's like, oh.
Oh,
And I never experienced that. I didn't even see it, but he was like, yeah, it's where the trucks go, but they don't travel here. And then but they're working on this expressway and there's still a lot of work to be done. So I don't know if that is a part of it, where they don't want them on that expressway while they work on it or what the case is, but there's another way for trucks to move and I didn't see any trucks.
interesting.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is, it's kind of interesting to see how things work in different places around the world. It's like, does everybody do it this way, or
Yeah.
somebody somewhere has probably got this thing figured out and doing it way
Yeah.
better, way
I
more
I
efficiently.
I I agree. I agree. There's one thing I'll say that really was interesting was the driving, and I've heard this about other countries, but um, stoplights and signs might be a good thing to install over there. But
I've been to Southeast Asia where you take your life in your hands if you go out on the road. It's just a free for like everything is merely a suggestion. But I tell you what, you better
oh,
not get caught without your seatbelt. Like put you under the jail.
oh my God. I mean, Adam, it was okay. You see a car going down the street, but guess what? Everything was fair game, meaning uh, motorcycles, bikes, human beings, everyone on the street, just going their way. But everyone knew the law, the unwritten laws,
Orchestrated chaos.
yeah, yeah. And it was fascinating. I mean, I filmed some of that stuff, but, it was so funny because the guy that would drive us around, he said, he admitted that what he would do at times, he figured me out. He would sometimes, speed up, slow down, put on the brakes on purpose because he liked my reaction, you know. Yeah. I said, okay, all right.
That's
I'm glad
funny.
I'm your entertainment, but
Yeah, gets a little boring over there in Kenya.
oh my, it was never boring, brother. It was for me, it wasn't. It was wonderful. So, you know,
So you're home now.
mm,
Um, you dove back into this freight world.
okay.
How's that working out for you?
2 days. So I'm 2 days back, right? And I tried to do a little work over there. It was kind of tough because of the time difference,
Right.
And we were just go, go, go all day, every day. But coming back, I mean, you and I talked a little bit and, you filled me in on some things. Um, and then it, it all seems to make sense that, I mean, when we look at it economically, right? Not just, hey, freight, give me the freight, and I deserve the freight. You should pay
Hmm.
me this and pay me that. There's a lot of economic things that are at play. And so when you go to another country, you see those economic things and they talk about it. And so when you come here and then we're talking about the freight world, you have to talk economics, right? And so, our conversation has been about, economic stuff. And here it's, uh, I don't know, jobs. Supposedly the job market is doing well, but supposedly there's a recession on the way, you know, and supposedly, all these same things. And it's like, well, you know what we got to do? We got to figure it out in order to make it through, same thing. We got to figure it out. But what you have to do is you have to accept that is the way I see it. You just have to accept that there are challenges throughout the world that impact how much you're going to get paid on this truck. right, for the
Exactly.
flow, and what's going to be available, and it's not just in the trucking industry, talking to some of the shippers, they tell me just within the past 2 days, it's tough, they're having challenges. So, it's not just us that's being, that it seems like we're being harshly impacted,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
So
everywhere.
the last couple of months have turned, exceptionally, I guess you could say, ugly if you're running the spot market or just anything in general in
Yeah,
freight.
yeah.
Even shipper freight is down,
Mm,
um, and we're all kind of sharing in the pain. It's not just trucking, and if you're not yet, you will be. I've
mm.
talked a lot about just the different economic things going on, and a couple different shows we just did, and a members only show.
Oh.
It's definitely cause for concern. And you bring
Mm,
up the fact that we're not alone. What happens around the world affects us. Well, it definitely does. China is not having a good time trying to restart up their country and their economy again.
no.
It's stumbling and bumbling all over the place, and
Mhm,
it's killing trade.
mhm,
Like there's nothing coming, and there's
mhm,
really no demand because consumers here aren't spending.
mhm,
They're buying necessities. So
mhm,
between them not being able to produce and us not really having the demand,
mhm,
that affects a large segment of the freight world.
mhm,
And what you're going to see on the store shelves,
mhm,
are tiddlywinks and cheap Chinese trinkets.
mhm.
Um,
There's one thing that I heard is that China, they're they have relations with a lot of different countries, including Kenya, and they're calling notes. They're having them pay back loans that they probably can't afford to pay back right now, but they're going after it, and so um, if it's that they need money or I don't know, whatever their situation is, um, when one country does something, right, it impacts another country, right?
exactly.
And not just the country, but we're talking about these are real people, you know. So real people are being impacted, and it impacts jobs, it impacts families, So China, there are things that they are doing. I'm not saying they're nefarious things, but I'm just saying there are things that moves that they're making for reasons, whether they want to become the number one superpower or it's just to survive. It's happening all around the world, and it ends up having an effect on us, whether it's the Putin war, I mean, there's just so many things. We're not alone. I guess that's the point. We're not alone.
That's more and more evident all the time. Um, a lot of issues right now in our economy, and a lot of them all at once. We have uh, a serious war situation going on in Europe and Asia. We have our own problems here with inflation and what's going on here, and then our seems that our currency and our economy are under attack by the rest of the world.
Mm,
Um, it's a tough time, and I really don't think it's really hit us yet.
mm,
It's coming, and I think it's going to be a prolonged, especially ugly one.
mm,
Um, we can get more into that later if people choose to, but so you find yourself thinking, well, what do I do?
mm,
If people are saying, and I'm not the only one saying this is going to last for a while. They're saying a freight recession is coming. Well, I tell you what, if a freight recession isn't already here, I hate to see what a freight recession looks like.
mm.
So, you know, is that people trying to, let you down gently? What are they trying to tell us here?
Yeah.
I have my own beliefs on that. I think it's going to be prolonged and particularly ugly. So then you find yourself thinking, well, what do I do? Because really, other than solutions, you're wasting your time trying to find out who to blame, what to blame. Um, at a certain point, here, you're living it. We got to find something to do about it. I mean,
Mm,
you can point all kinds of fingers at whose fault it is, right?
mm. Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, we're all sharing in the pain. Brokerages are laying off left and right. Shippers, you've talked to shippers. Their situation is, in some cases, pretty dire, especially if they're, you know, subject to, they make, consumer non-necessity things that people aren't
Mm,
really spending money on anymore.
mm, mm,
Um, there's plenty of pain for everybody to go around, and then try to find a way out of it. Um, where do you start? I
mm,
mean, do we just go back to the things we said before, and the things you should always do with, you know, relationships, and just work the heck out of them?
mm,
Is there new strategies for a guy to do?
mm.
Um, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that something that's been tried and true, it has been obviously the relationships, and I mean, again, I go back to, okay, so I'm sorry, I may bring up my trip multiple times if you don't
Do it.
mind.
No, it's good. It's good to
Okay.
hear.
So, like I said, you see people hustling all over, right? And so my parents, they've built a lot of relationships over there. I'm just fascinated with what they've accomplished, right? And so, whether we go to a school, right, where we were handing out backpacks to students with a project that my dad had put together, um, to working on developing um, a building over there, to knowing what other people are doing. There was one guy who does video, right? He does commercials, and so we were talking, having a good conversation. And at one point, he was talking about how he got into selling real estate. This was maybe a couple of years ago, I think, and he was working to help my parents. But and then he just disappeared, at some point within that 2-year period. But he got into real estate because he saw an opportunity there where he could make some money, because the commercial side, that was being challenged. There wasn't many people, I guess, needing to do commercials because they maybe didn't have money to do, I don't know, whatever it was, but business was low. So he got into that, didn't know what he was doing, but and then he just disappears. And I think it was because he didn't know what he was doing, right? So he was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. And he just kind of vanished, right? But then he comes back, and then I have a good conversation with him, just an open, real conversation. He said he didn't know what he was doing, but he's learned, right? He's learned some things. And the way he's learned is there are different people that he's communicated with and continues to, and builds upon that, right? Builds
Hmm.
upon these relationships. And obviously, you have to have a network and have clients, right? And opportunities. So you've got to build off of these relationships. They may not look like anything at the moment, right? But eventually they become something, right? It becomes a value, right? These
Hmm.
relationships, like I said, with my parents being over in Kenya, and all these people that they know and that know them. And I mean, I'm talking about people, whether in government, within, immigration, with, again, real estate, with just common people. It was just fascinating. And I just fell into it, because I went there. I was just like, I'm just going to be open and just absorb it all and allow me to be there and to just experience it all. And so when I left, I had so many people that were wishing me well, right? Texting me, what is it? Whatever the Facebook thing is, messaging me. And we were just communicating back and forth. And these are relationships that I built within 3 weeks, right? And
And,
I
and
feel like, huh?
and you said that the whole quality of your trip was based off of their relationships with other people. So your quality of your whole vacation was set before you even arrived there.
Oh, my parents were the greatest tour guide, but it was, they knew who to touch, you know what I mean, to get things done. And I mean, daily, I get a call from my dad. Okay, here's the agenda today. I'm like, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and then we go down at 5, at 10, and it's like, I'm so exhausted, but it was based upon this groundwork that they created, right? So there's things that people told them. They said, we're so impressed with some of the things that you guys have accomplished, because it just doesn't happen that fast. Certain things that you guys are doing or have done, not while I was there in the 3 weeks, but prior to me, that they had accomplished in the time that they had been out there. they said it just doesn't happen, and that's very, very impressive. And my parents are in their 70s, you know,
Hmm.
mid to late 70s. And, and there's challenges with them getting around and things like that, but there's nothing stopping them. Right. So, like you said, we can have excuses and blame this and blame that. There are so many things where even I witnessed that they could have blamed. Right.
Oh, you
And
can die over there. You got warring factions.
you
Like you said, terrorist attacks. It's a risky thing to do business over there. And
totally.
and it kind of relates back to what we're doing in that. How long have your parents been working building a business over there?
I think it was 2000. I think 2017 is when they
Yeah,
started
so
it.
it doesn't happen right away.
Right.
You lay groundwork. Same with trucking.
Right.
Just the relationships take time. They take years.
Mm,
Um, you know, we've only been talking about this for, I guess, maybe close to 2 years now. But really, in the scheme of things, that's a very short period of time.
mm.
Some work relationships you work on for 10 years, 15 years.
Oh yeah.
That's
Right.
how companies grow.
Right.
Um, so you know, don't be too frustrated if you've had some setbacks or if you have to start over.
Mm-hmm.
With all the relationships I've built, there's only a small handful that have really lasted through this.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows, it's not over yet, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll build more.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I can't imagine doing it any other way.
Mm. Yeah, and that's a good point too. I mean, when you say any other way, so I think about it again, going back to Kenya. What would be the alternative? What are other than having just a gobload of money, right, and being able to do what you want to do? I mean, even like with Warren Buffett, I mean, it's that slow grind, and eventually, there are things that happen. You definitely have to assess the scenario, the situation, and make good business decisions. But at the same time, that's even built on relationships. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And experience. To have an idea as to maybe what direction to go in.
yeah.
So. Mhm,
A relationship isn't going to make everything perfect and happy all the time. You're going to go through tough times with those people. I mean,
mhm,
we're going through a tough time with one of them right now, but we
mhm,
talk a lot about it, and we both decided that we're both in it for the long term. You know,
mhm,
we're going to keep each other going through this downturn and come
mhm,
out the other side, a lot stronger for it. Will we
mhm,
both make it? Who knows? But it's the best chance
mhm,
that we have.
mhm.
So things aren't always perfect, but I tell you what, it's been better than anything else we got going out there.
Yeah. The expectation definitely should not be perfect, right? It should not be that you expect perfect. Yeah, you should know that challenges are going to be there, so expect that, right? And I don't. Okay, so the part of traveling for me is the actual travel part, right? Getting from point A to point B.
Hmm.
You might have to go from point A to point C to point D to point, and then back to point whatever to get to wherever you're trying to get to. But that whole process, it's so unknown. It's so funny. I would get in line and I'm just looking at people and everybody looks like they know what they're doing. Adam, no one knew what they were doing. Everybody was just following the other person, right? And I look around and I'd ask them, I say, are we supposed to be in this line? Because I don't know what we're supposed to. And then they look at me and they're so confident after I say that. And they're like, I don't know. It's like no one knows. So what I end up doing is what we end up doing is this. Everyone feels comfortable now that we all know that we don't know. The answer comes about. Adam, with someone that works there, then all of a sudden answers us, or we all kind of get together and just kind of figure something out. I mean, it's not like we spend 20 minutes trying to figure it out. But my point is the simplest thing. It was okay to not know. You know what I mean? And to express that, and then going through the lines and things like that, it took time and it sucked, right? But I
Hmm.
wanted to get on my plane, right?
Right.
I didn't want to miss it. I experienced that before, but I didn't want to miss it. So I had to figure it out. And there were challenges. Sometimes we had to take off our shoes. Sometimes we didn't. Sometimes we had to go through 3 checkpoints in one airport, and we had to do different things. And things weren't being told to us and people were being nasty, but you had to go through it. You see what I mean? If
Right.
you have a goal, if there's something that you want to achieve or accomplish, you have to understand that you're going to go through something in order to get there, right? So, not saying it's okay to just accept whatever, but I am saying it is okay to accept that there are going to be challenges, and let that be the fun part. I I think I don't know. I think we just grow and learn, and it makes us that much better. Does that make
We
sense?
do, and yeah, and it's not fun, and it can be certainly be painful.
Yeah.
Um, but it's part of life. Like with anything else, nothing comes easy. Nothing worth
Mhm.
having, nothing lasting comes easy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
roadblocks everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So back to freight.
Yeah.
Um, one thing I've not really discussed with you, I've seen people saying, leading up in the last few months that why contract freight with because it's risky. The shipper just cancels your contract when they want it done cheaper. It's too
Mm,
risky. They can just pull all your freight away from you.
mm,
I don't know what freight is not risky, or I don't know why people are led to believe that doesn't happen in the spot market. It happens every day. You look, what was there yesterday is not there today, or won't be there tomorrow. But
mm-hmm.
there was this sentiment going around for a little bit that contract freight was too risky. Well, just because something is direct from a shipper does not mean it's necessarily contract. There's all kinds of different freight. They'll give
Right.
you, some places will just say, yeah, you haul direct for us, but it'll be different every week, or we'll give you loads as you can take them, whatever. What do you say to that? That direct shipper freight is too risky. I mean, I certainly have my own opinion.
Yeah. I mean, you pretty much covered it, man. Direct freight varies, I mean, in terms of, I mean, if we just use the term and say direct freight, okay, you're going to a shipper, right? But that can look different depending upon the shipper, depending upon, the lanes or product or what have you, because they can have a mix, they can work with brokers and they can have direct freight offered. If you want to call working with the broker, even direct freight, brokers get freight directly from the shipper. But we understand what that's about. But as a carrier, um, you know, here's the thing. What my experience has been is that carriers, maybe not as much today, but carriers it's been an unknown for carriers, right? And so maybe some carriers don't get it, right now with the way the market is, again, economics, contract, whether it lasts for a year, lasts for 6 months, lasts for 3 months, or however long it lasts, it's the sign of the times. You know what I'm saying? So it's the way things are now. When they say risky, I don't know what that exactly means. Maybe you can tell me, what does that mean when they say risky?
I think they just mean that it can just be taken away from you. That if they
Oh,
want a
okay.
cheaper
Yeah,
rate, they just cancel your contract, and
yeah,
there you go. But I
yeah,
mean, that happens on a minute to minute basis
yeah,
on the load boards. I mean,
yeah,
what freight isn't that way? I
yeah.
mean, really, it's just degrees of risk
Right.
is what you're dealing
It,
with.
it's the sign of the times, as I was saying, like where, we've been used to, you can get a contract for a year, right? And then it goes down to where they have contracts within a month time period, just because, there's been such volatility. And as you had indicated at one point that um, during the COVID situation, rates were out of this world, right? You get what you want, and then there could feel like there's this payback, carriers or shippers are like, hey, you know what? I'm going to take it to the carrier or whatever. But I mean, the reality of it is that we're talking about the business cycle, right? I mean, we go up, we go down, and, this is how it works. But there's going to be a time period where it's going to be good for the carriers, good for the shippers. Rates are going to adjust. Carriers are going to come in. Carriers are going to go, right? And it's just that ebb and flow. So risky, is this more risky? I wouldn't say that unless your thought is that I own this freight and I should have it forever, and then somebody's just going to come around and take it from me. I'm just going to add to my trip about my trip. So, and then we can move on. But so in that respect, here's the story. So my great grandfather owned a lot of land. Man, I went on the what's it called, the golf course or the country club that exists now on the land that he used to own. And there's also a part of the University of Nairobi, the vet school, that is on this land. And this land is vast. I mean, it is beautiful,
Mhm.
and but it was taken away from him, So this land, he no longer owned. He had some land, and then my grandfather, he had some land as well, and it's passed down. But you know, there are those challenges where they own land and it was taken away. Here, what we're talking about, this is why it came up in my head again, as I said, we don't own that freight, right? And like you say, yes, it can be taken away from us, but we don't own it, right?
Right.
It's not something we own. So again, knowing what the business is, how do you deal with that? If you don't own it, how do you operate? What are you bringing to the table that says, hey, I'm going to give you this business? Or you're going to offer it for a penny a mile so that you can retain it? Of course not. So we've got to get smarter. Technology is out there. Does technology play a part in it? It could, depending upon the shipper. What are we offering the shipper? So there's different ways to look at it, and it's all just doing business.
Uh, COVID and the supply chain breakdown that we had a few years ago
Hmm.
um, led us all, not all, led a lot of us down a path of misunderstanding. It really did.
Yeah.
And there was a whole lot of things here that got glossed over or just totally missed in this business
Mm.
because at that time you didn't need to know.
Right.
Um, but now we're back to that,
Mm.
like really understanding freight, how it works, the cycles, the process. Um, and here we are. This business is not quote unquote easy anymore. It's not like
Right.
printing money. Well, it never was before that,
No.
but it's like a tulip mania, right? You just get caught up.
Yeah.
So we're kind of back to that.
Yeah.
Um, so there's a lot of things have happened since you and I have talked last. We haven't talked in a while out here on YouTube. There's a whole other thing of, especially when this first started, that it's all it is the broker screwing us. Now, I deal with both sides of it. I talk to customers. I am a carrier. You talk to a whole bunch of people, people that we will never speak to. What's the truth behind that? Is there more going on than we know?
Yeah, I mean, well, what I would say is like, depending upon specifically what we're talking about, I mean, there's bad players everywhere, there's the carrier side, broker side, shipper side, wherever. But, but for the most part, I think people are trying to do the right thing. But, I mean, brokers are trying to make it as well. There are brokers they've gone out of business. There are those that have laid off, right? There are, those that I'll say this, talking to shippers, man, shippers aren't stupid. You know what I mean? They're smart and they work to try and cut costs too, because it's expensive. I mean, I was talking to a shipper today and they have had to lay off people. And the reason being is because, the high cost of doing business, so for them, think about it. If they go to a shipper, they can't just all of a sudden say, because I need to move freight, here you go. I give you whatever you want,
Hmm.
right? So, if they work with a broker, it doesn't mean that they're going to give the broker, whatever money they want. I'm sure that there's scenarios out there where the broker is cost-wise, they might make quite a bit of money, but I don't think that's on every load. I mean,
Right.
my experience has been where brokers have lost money, on loads, and a carrier seems to think they're not, but so obviously it's a thing of, if you don't know, if you don't have the paperwork right in front of you, how do you know? You don't know. but I don't think that we're seeing where brokers are just trying to kill the carriers. You know, and
It's
it makes no
cutthroat
sense.
right now.
Huh?
Brokers are cutting each other's throats trying to get the freight,
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. And
and
it
and, and
mhm.
they're being double brokered.
Mm,
They're being scammed, or we're being scammed.
mm,
There's plenty, and I like the fact that you said there that shippers are not stupid.
mm,
Something that I haven't heard anybody else say, and it's kind of in my head, but I'm going to get crucified for saying it. But whatever, is shippers are tired of getting ripped off too.
mm,
So, people think, oh, okay, so the shipper paid the broker, say, $5,000 to haul a load. We're just making up numbers here, and
mm,
the broker paid the carrier $2,000 or whatever. I'm totally
mhm,
making this up. People are mad because they're ripping off the trucker. Well, guess what? That shipper's getting ripped off too, right? They're paying somebody a $3,000 commission to move that freight.
right,
They're hip to that
right.
because they can see what a lot of them get the load boards so they can monitor what's going on and who's doing this
Yeah.
and who's doing what and see their competition and different market cycles and whatever.
Mhm,
They're tired of it too,
mhm,
so it rolls downhill.
mhm.
It
Yeah,
really does.
yeah, yeah.
And I've been a part of several RFPs right here right
Mhm,
now where the shipper is like, here's the rate.
mhm,
We set the rate.
mhm,
This is the rate. You
mhm,
move it or don't move it. You make a commission or you don't, but here's the rate.
mhm,
And this rate stands for 6 months, or this
mhm,
rate stands for a year.
mhm,
So there's plenty of things going on also that people aren't seeing.
mhm, mhm.
We're
Yeah.
we're actually kind of working, you and I, with somebody right now that the shipper went mid contract to all their carriers and said, here's the deal, folks. You're going to take this pay cut,
Mhm,
or we'll turn it all over to brokers. And largely they did.
mhm.
The carriers came back with a counter offer and they said, nope, here's the rate.
Yeah,
Here's the lanes, the rates,
yeah,
take it or leave it. Uh, they had been doing business there for well over 15 years and it didn't mean a didn't mean a thing.
yeah.
So, and then they set it on a 6 month contract. And
Mm,
guess what? Guess when that comes due?
yeah.
Over Christmas time,
Yep, it's in
when
December.
when freight is soft again.
Mm,
So
yeah.
they're setting rates, to assume that things are going to get better,
Mhm,
over the summer. Well, guess what? Rates have already been set for the year,
mhm,
largely.
mhm. Yeah,
The RFP season is winding down for a lot of places, and the rates
yeah,
are set for the season.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and the thing about it is, in saying that, saying it out loud, hearing it and processing that and allowing that to be what it is, then it's like, okay, so, let me think about this. Let me kind of think outside the box, or, let me versus, versus being upset about it, I I don't know if people would be upset about it, but versus taking on the attitude of looking to blame this or blame that or what have you. You can do that. And at the same time, when we talk about, we blame something, whatever it is that we're blaming, it's having an impact on something else. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever it is we're blaming, it probably is being impacted by something, So if a carrier is setting or a shipper is setting the rate, right? And they go to the broker, and then the broker has to set the rate, and then they come to the carrier, and the carrier is frustrated with the broker, but the broker is kind of bound because of what the shipper is setting. But again, you've got to go beyond that. What is the shipper dealing with, right? Because again, a shipper is telling me they had to let go of people because of cost, the increase of cost. So they're like, how do we keep our doors open? Because then they're telling me about another company similar to theirs who had to shut down, you see?
Hmm.
And so when a company shuts down, that's never good for anyone. You see what
No,
I mean?
and
It's
in the
never good.
past, there's
Mhm,
so many empty threats of, well, we'll just not ship it. Well, we'll close the doors.
mhm,
You're going to unionize our company. We'll close the doors. I know a company that's going through that right now.
mhm,
Um, a lot of empty threats. Guess what? Those threats aren't empty anymore. Businesses know the cycle. They
mhm,
know the cycle that's coming for the next 6 months and into next year.
mhm,
Those threats are not empty. I
Mm-hmm.
know a local company that just got rid of, well, two local companies
Mm-hmm.
just got rid of all their trucks. One had like
Mm-hmm.
15 trucks, and the other one had like 60 trucks. Manufacturers they were. They
Mm.
told the drivers no pay cut or no pay increase this year, and you're going to have to take some concessions, or
Mm.
we're getting rid of the trucks.
Mm.
They
Yeah.
didn't take it. Those trucks are gone.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
are
That was
gone.
an thing. Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is that like you and I having this conversation, right? Um, it's okay, I think, to have this type of conversation with, it doesn't have to be so dominant and heavy,
Hmm.
but you can have these conversations with shippers, you can have these conversations with brokers. I mean, do they know anything like, in conversating with a shipper, I told him, I said, we were talking about these things, but I said, I don't know, help me out. When I went to Kenya, right? Here, eggs were $3.99. No, four ninety nine higher. It had gotten up to like I think $6.99 a dozen here. So I don't remember what it was when I left. But when I came back, Adam, I looked and I always visit the eggs. Anytime I go to grocery store, I always look to see what the eggs are. And I looked and Adam, the eggs were $1.59.
Hmm.
I hadn't seen that since the beginning of COVID. Right? And that's the regular price. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? I haven't investigated to check it out, but I'm talking to the shipper, and the shipper's like, oh, really? So the shipper doesn't have the answer as to all these things that are going on, but they know what's going on within their market, within their space, right? And it's okay to have conversations, and find out, hey, what's going on with you? What have you realized? And you get on this another other level of talking, and what I mean by that, it becomes human, you know, and it gives you then an opportunity to talk to them about freight, and about the things that matter and the cost, and all those things. And who knows, you may end up building a relationship where you end up helping them out, and maybe something comes more longer term, you know. But once we do put up that wall, though, and it's about the blame game, that's as far as you're going to go.
Yeah, it's a different conversation.
Mm,
We've said that time and time again, but something y- this is something that you're probably not aware of because you don't play around on the load boards of the spot market too much.
mhm,
So something that's happening, I've talked a good deal about this with my friend Snorlord, is freight is moving away from load boards, spot freight. Okay.
yeah.
There's obviously a drastic decrease in volumes on the load boards, but a lot of that freight is just going to different places.
Mhm,
Um, some of it is posted in both, but brokers are moving away from the load board model. One, because of all the fraud, and two, because they just they don't want that model anymore. They want the people they know to haul their freight. They want you that have hauled for them before to haul their freight. So they're putting together, a lot of them are their own load boards. Some of them, a lot of them are switching over to this thing called Parade, which I've been booking a lot of freight off of lately. So something people need to understand is that's one thing we're going to have to adjust to, and that's becomes a part again of building relationships and finding out how these people like to cover their freight, where their freight is going. But freight is still moving.
yeah.
I heard a statistic, and I have a hard time believing it, that some like 90% of the freight that moves in the country is not on the load board. That seems really
Yeah.
high, but I wouldn't doubt it if it's true. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's contracted.
Mm,
It's just like, if I'm a broker, which,
mm,
I almost never posted a load on the load board. It was the
mm,
same people hauling a freight would never make it to the load board.
mhm, yeah,
So a lot of that goes on, and it's only going to be more of that as circumstances get tougher.
yeah,
So, we have to adjust to that.
yeah. Yeah, I think that word adjust is it. I mean, we talk about the only constant is change, right? And the thing which you mentioned about the 90%, no, I believe that's pretty accurate because the spot market comprises of, I think it's, and I don't know what it is today, but the number at one point was like 10%, 10, 15% of the, loads that move. So where's the other freight? You see what I mean? So that number sounds right on target. And I mean, here's the thing. I don't know. I mean, maybe it'll make sense, maybe it won't, but it does in my head. You know, you've got presidential elections, right? So the person that gets, you would think that gets, you know, nominated, it's because of the times, right? I mean, they're depending upon what's going on at that time, and then what this individual says they're all about or whatever, you know, it's based upon what's going on at that time. So we have situations where we look at the times, right? What's going on, and then we have to make the moves based upon that. Here, I'll give you an example. I think Kodak would be one, and Tupperware would be another, where things have changed.
Hmm.
I don't know what Kodak is into now,
Not much.
but not much. So I think they've been challenged because they've not evolved, you know,
Yeah.
to what's going on now.
They didn't want to stop making buggy whips. They just wanted to, when the world moved
Yeah,
to gasoline powered engines, they were
right,
still making buggy whips, and they didn't see the need to change. So
right.
that, they went extinct like a dinosaur.
And I think Tupperware has been challenged with
Hmm.
that, you know, and having the same model, or you know, business model in terms of, you know, I don't know, whatever it is that they do. So so you have to, now there's one, I don't know what it's all about today, but I remember when I was younger, I always would get hit up with Amway. You remember Amway?
Yeah, it's called Quick Star now.
Quick Star. Okay, okay, okay. And I think that they got to a point where, you know, they embraced technology, you know, and you know, and I don't know where they're at today, but the point is that you cannot, and I remember people in trucking when they were talking about the ELDs coming out, right?
Hmm.
And people like, I'm going to get out of trucking, you know, if that thing goes through, I'm not going to change, you know. And they gave good reasons why they felt that maybe that wasn't a good idea, but they were defiant, you know, in that I'm not going to change. At that point, even 2017 or whatever it was, prior to that, even, you know, let's say 2015 is where my mind goes back to 2009. Anyway, we were so far behind in technology, our industry. And then you get to obviously where COVID comes up, and then there's all this money, billions of dollars put in for technology, you know, thinking that that's going to be the answer. A lot of people got into it because it was a cash grab. You know, they could just make money, throw something out there and make money, you know. But we were so far behind, and there are a lot of people that did get left behind, you know, because they did not evolve. But you have to try to stay forward thinking, you know.
Hmm.
A lot of people get into this industry. Maybe there's a low barrier to entry, but it's not a low level business. You know what I mean? It's serious business. And so you want to be able to look at it in that way, whatever that means, and be able to operate, you know, as a business, you know, you that's how it is. Not just having a truck, picking it up and, you know, it's a business, you
Right.
know, and things evolve and we have to evolve with that.
I think in the history of trucking, you could get away with a lot of that, running a really inefficient operation, not understanding, taxes, accounting,
Mm.
mechanics, you know, all of that thing. But that sure is changing, and our competition is changing. We're not now only in competition with other trucking companies. We're in competition with artificial intelligence,
Oh yeah.
um, the technology, battery powered technologies.
Mm.
Eventually, who knows when it'll be, but it'll be, autonomy in different sectors.
Right.
Uh, our competition is changing,
Mm.
and if we're stuck in the mud, we're gonna go the way of Kodak. We're gonna be the modern day Kodak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good point. And you know what? But and then here's the good news about it, though. At least the way I see it. Um, I like change. Obviously, there's times when change comes about and I don't like it, right? But if you are, like we said, in business, man, wouldn't you? Man, I don't know. Me, I just like to see where I'm in a business and I see challenges, right? And then if somebody can come up with something that helps me, right? Let's say I hire someone to help me around the office. I mean, I got all this paperwork I got to do behind me, but someone comes in and oh man, I feel so relieved, right? And then I can get to the core thing that I really enjoy doing, right?
Hmm.
So if I'm in business and there's something that comes along that can help me, I'm not looking at it to put me out of business. How can I benefit from this? Man, is something then I should embrace, you know. I don't know what other people's attitude is about it, but I mean, what would be something specific, Adam, like that has come into our industry that maybe people see it as a challenge, but maybe if they embrace it, you know, um, it could be
Uh,
autonomous trucks. I mean, that's a big deal. Everybody has their opinion about that, but there's lots of other things, you know.
AI is making its headway. Well, brokers have a good grasp on it. Shippers do. Why haven't large trucking companies found a way to harness the power of it to benefit them?
Mm,
There's got to be something a company like, and maybe they are, like JB Hunt or Schneider can do with AI to streamline their operations to the fact that, okay, now we don't need a dispatcher per 30 drivers. Maybe it can be a dispatcher per 60 drivers because we can get AI to do a lot of these things.
mm,
There's got
mhm.
to be a way to harness that to our benefit also.
I think so.
It's going to be hard for the smaller guys,
Mhm.
when we can't afford it, we don't have the resources, we don't have the time. Uh, but it's isn't that the way everything works?
Yeah. I mean, I think, just like with, remember the flat screen TVs when they came? I know I do. I mean, I loved electronics, and the flat screen TV came out and they were big and they were $20,000 for 40-inch or whatever it was. But the picture was amazing and it was flat, still a little heavy, but it was flat. And it cost a lot of money over time. You get
Hmm.
you 40-inch for, I don't know, $200, maybe 300, something like that. You get a bigger one. You get a 70-inch for under $1,000, So, over time, things do become affordable. One, secondly, they become mainstream. Thirdly, they become, more efficient. The technology gets better. All these things happen to the point where you can operate as if you were this major company. When the internet came out, I remember a commercial, man, back in the day. It was uh, it was an Asian company, and they were all sitting around the big table, and they were on this conference call, and they were trying to make this decision for their big company. And then on the other end, they were talking to a mom and pop farm. It was
Hmm.
just them sitting there on their farm on that conference call and just giving the answer, yep, and then that was it. And it was like saying how the internet is able to make the world so small, to the point where even someone here in Iowa or wherever can be doing business with this big company. But there are things that are coming about that allow that and have come about. And in our industry, it does exist. There are things that exist that allow us to do things that we couldn't think about doing,
Yeah, and they're so affordable that
Right.
I could make myself with 5 or 6 trucks appear to be a company with 50 trucks.
Mm-hmm.
A VoIP with a phone tree
Mm-hmm.
is so cheap. I can put all these extensions in, or for safety, for dispatch, for whatever. A website, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You can as a small company operate on such a high level now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so affordable that
It really is.
it's crazy
Yeah.
compared to what we used to have.
Yeah. It really is. I mean, back in 2009, man, I was wanting to come out with this thing. What was it? Macro Point. I
Hmm.
think they've sold, but before that, it was coming out with a tracking. Where you would use the phone and then you wouldn't have to get a device or expensive device, install it in the truck, and all that stuff. And so I was working to develop that, and then Macro Point had come up with something, and they were doing that. And back then I was talking to shippers and carriers and saying, hey, what do you think of the idea? And they were like, oh, it's a great idea, but drivers, they're not going to spend money on those expensive smartphones. That's what they were called back then, smartphones. And so they're not going to spend the money on that. And they don't want to be tracked. They're not going to go for it. And I just scratched my head. I was like, they're not going to go for it. What? They're moving somebody's freight and they don't want that person to know where their freight is, you know?
Yeah,
And
from a company driver's perspective, I understand that. That's, between the shipper and the company, and why am I caught in the middle? I get it at a certain point, but I also see the other side of it.
well, I guess my thing was this. I might be concerned right now, but do you really see where things are headed? You know what I mean?
Yeah, right,
That things are not gonna stop just because you feel this way.
right,
There's things to be done, and there's a reason why. And not only that, what if it's then that you are offering it and no one else is? You see what I mean? So
right.
you can be ahead on that and have an opportunity to, so I don't know. I mean, it's again about, opening up to, I would say just the possibilities, man. When I was in Kenya, we talked to the kids, man. It was fourth grade class. It was like 314 of these fourth graders out there standing around listening to us. And they said, all right, Paul, say something to the class or to the, I'm like, what do you want me to say? I didn't come prepared, And it's like, well, I just was open and talking about my experience and how I was amazed at, everything that I was experiencing. But I left them with always dream, always dream, always question, always look at the possibilities, look at the opportunities. Don't look at, behind and try to, be the one that stops progress, or is afraid of advancing, no, be a part of that, see what's out there, explore what is this, and it's not, there's some bad stuff out there. There's some things that can be like automation. I remember back in the day, man, they used to talk about, oh, it's not going to take jobs. I was scratching my head and trying to figure out how would that not happen. It's a good thing, I think, automation, but I think it's going to take some jobs, that's just kind of how it can be, so let's not avoid that. But automation is good. There's all kind of automations, you know what I mean? Who likes pushing paper around all day? Not me, you know.
There's certain things we don't have control over,
Mm,
so focus on the things that we can.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so you talk to a lot of different places every day. I mean, what are shippers saying? Are they still trying to move freight? Can people still? And I'm not ignoring the chat here. Sorry, folks. I'll come back to you here. The good comments, but um, is there still opportunities for people to get in places moving freight?
Still opportunities. Yeah, there's opportunity. And when I say that, I mean, again, like you had mentioned a long time ago, there's opportunity to build relationships. That's the way I look at it. But in terms of freight, freight is still there. It's obviously at a lower level. There's no question about that. And, that's just the way it is.
You're gonna have
Um,
to be. People are gonna have to be sharper talking to these people. You have to know your lanes. Thinking that you're gonna go in, cut out the broker, and get more money just because you're hauling it direct.
yeah,
They're hip to that. It's just not. Why would they?
yeah, yeah. I don't, again, shi a shipper has to, a shipper, okay, we call them a shipper. It's a business, right? They got to keep their doors open,
Hmm.
right? So they're going to do all the things that they need to do to keep their doors open. So they have salespeople. They have salespeople looking for where their product can go. You know what I mean? So they're really trying their best to figure that out. And whatever need comes up, meaning transporting freight, whether it's small amount, great amount, whatever it is, they have a need. They want to have a need. They want to have a need to ship. If they're not moving freight, then they need to pivot to something else where they don't need to move freight or that's going to allow them to move freight. So my point is that they will move freight. I mean, there's freight out there. It's just not as it was, during the COVID time periods. We're going through a time period right now, but build those relationships. You know, that's that's the key thing.
If you don't ask, you'll never talk
Nope,
to anybody.
nope, never,
So
never.
can you still help people if they were interested?
Absolutely. I mean, when we're talking about helping people, we're talking about again, building those relationships. And that's where we're at now. This is the time. These are the times. The times is, work to build relationships. It's always that way. But right now, even if the freight is low, build relationships.
Are you still getting calls from carriers regularly?
Yeah, I mean, it's me reaching out, then them reaching back to me. That's the way it always has been. But yeah,
So
they're
how have those conversations changed, and what are their
yeah.
expectations and attitudes coming into it compared to what they were a year ago at this time?
Yeah, well, a year ago, let's say even a couple years ago. At one point then it was just all right, let's talk. You know what I mean? Now it's where, I can make a call, and then it's where we had to leave voice messages and things like that to get callbacks. People aren't just like transferring and then all of a sudden they pick up the phone. That person is answering the phone. You got to go through the voicemail, but we get people who answer, but yet at the same time we get people calling back, and when they call back, what they're saying is, we're hearing two things. One, okay, we want to put you in our network, right, or in our files, so then we can reach out at a later time, right? That's one. Another is we want to put you on our network, so we'll we'll go through that approval process or whatever. Others, there are those that are like, how many trucks do you have? They want to know that. To me, the feel is it feels to me like shippers are saying, all right, let me communicate with this carrier, although it feels like there might not be much loyalty. That's, I think, is the best way to put it.
That's absolutely true. Yeah,
Yeah.
it feels like that way because it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. So I think that they're open. And so even if they come to you, as we talked about, there can be a bid, like you said, every 6 months, right? Now with this other company, or even shorter, it could be every 3 months, every month, or whatever it is. So with that, and knowing that they're going to make these adjustments throughout the year multiple times, and if I know that and I'm accepting of that, then what's left for me to do? I can go that route, try to work with that. I can work to, I believe, build those relationships. If I've got a Rolodex of shippers, then I can work with that, hopefully, through the year. But what we're talking about is we got to get through this period. You know what I'm saying? We got to I don't know how long it's going to last. Fed is still trying to lower, what you would call it, inflation. And me personally, I think they may in June do it again. I mean, how high? I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's going to be, 0.5, but I think maybe 0.25 again, but they're still working on it, and it's going to have an impact. And I know, you have, probably some numbers that say, hey, this is only going to lead us into a darker place.
They're not good. I'll be honest. Yeah, but that's a whole nother topic. Um, so I totally lost my train of thought. I
I'm sorry,
apologize. No,
but
that's okay. So
yeah,
there's still work to be done. Can we go back for a minute to the truck show?
yeah.
We haven't done a show since then, have we?
I don't know.
I don't
I
think
don't
so.
think so. I don't think so.
And I want to get your impressions. I certainly gave a little bit of mine. Two things I want to talk about from the truck show. First, we got to talk about Adam Wingfield.
Adam, yeah.
I had talked about him a little bit when I came
Okay.
back.
Okay.
Um, I mistakenly was calling him Adam Wakefield, who was totally somebody else for some brokerage or whatever. So I apologize for that.
Yeah.
Hopefully he didn't see that. But you've met this gentleman and been involved. You went to a couple of his functions.
Yep.
Um, people are gonna find out who this guy is. I believe. I think he's
Mhm.
gonna become a player in this industry,
Yeah.
and a positive level.
Mm.
We need more people like that.
Mm.
He's kind of like us, but a lot more amped up.
Mm. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
on 10 cups and more coffee. Um, what can you say about Mr. Wingfield?
Well, I can say is that he believes what he says. There's no question about that,
I
right?
believe that too.
And I know it was people they've been reaching out to me since I was in Kenya, and unfortunately, you know, I haven't been able to. Well, I need to reach out to them to here next week. But at any rate, man, I mean, you know, you have when we were at the show, as you know, there were different stages, right? There were
Yes.
different opportunities to, to go to different rooms for different things, whether it's FMS, FM,
CSA.
say there you go. God, I haven't said that in a while. Any rate, so they had a presentation. There were brokers there were drivers, carriers that had their own presentation, and how they qualified to to get on stage, I don't know, but I'm not disqualifying any of them, right? I'm just saying that there was a variety on stage, right? Different stages. And Adam had the stage, a stage, I think on two times. We saw him twice, didn't we?
Yeah.
A couple stages. And he basically, if I was to give him a nickname, I think I'd give him the nickname The Truth, right?
There you go.
I think that's what I would call him. I would call him The Truth. Adam The Truth. And he
The
came
harsh
with,
reality.
huh?
The harsh reality.
Harsh
He's pretty in your.
reality.
He's pretty in your face.
Hey, and the thing was, he talked about other presentations, not to put them down, but to say, look, here's the deal. You know what I mean? To let you know and uncover and give you a perspective that not just made sense, but and not only was real, but to say, hey, let me shake you up, right? I need to shake you up, and not only shake you up, I'm going to put you right here and you don't move. That's kind of what he said.
Until I tell you.
Until I tell you. And it was a good thing, right? Because if you
Absolutely.
moved, you're going to wish you hadn't. And so he brings the truth, and he lets you know for what he knows and his experience, right? I mean, he had been a driver for a while, some years ago. So he's been through all that. He's been through a lot, and he's bringing what he knows. And now he has also his opinions, as we all do, right? Does that mean it's right or predictions are going to come true and all that stuff? He's basing it upon what he knows, right? And there's a conviction there. I mean, I enjoy listening to him, right? And I've been on one of his master class. He's invited me a couple times, and he's got this group of students, right? They're all right there on the screen, and he's going through one thing after another. Then it's my section, right? My time to do what I do, but he's got this whole thing planned out, and it's full of so much information. Now, a lot of the students that he has, I think they are, well, I'm not going to say a lot, I don't know, but a lot of them appear to be first time in the industry. And then others seem to be those that had gotten into industry, but were just kind of flailing. You know what I mean? Just kind of like, okay, I'm doing this, but I really need someone to take me and guide me and let me know, like in school, man. You know what I mean? He was the teacher, and then when you graduate, right, you can say, man, Adam, my teacher back in whatever grade level, he was the one that set me on this path, and that's why I'm successful today. So that's,
Something just came into my head. Something I heard a long time ago,
yeah.
and it very much applies to Adam. And I'd like to think to an extent myself, but Adam is very, and Wingfield is very much in your face more than you and I are. Um, it's a quote, and sorry, I'm going to use a bad word for a minute, so everybody forgive me, but uh, listen up, because this one thing could change the perspective of how you view what you're doing, right? It goes something like this: bees don't spend their lives trying to convince flies that honey tastes better than shit. They don't care. They don't care about the flies.
Yeah.
They're doing over here doing bee things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Eating honey. Well, the
Right.
fly's over there eating off a pile of manure.
Hmm.
Hey, fly can go do its own damn thing.
Yep.
I'm gonna go stay over here eating out of this honeycomb or
Right.
off this flower, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that's Adam.
Yeah.
He's gonna tell you what he thinks. He's gonna tell you the way it is, and
Yeah.
he don't give a damn what you think. If you don't like it or agree or you're gonna
Yeah.
want to argue, just go over there and do that because over here we're building some stuff. We're doing
Yeah.
some things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of that way too, although not necessarily that in your face about it. But
Yeah.
I think about that saying a lot lately. I'm like, somebody wants to argue a point with me. I'm like, is this worth arguing? Or why do I even care what this person thinks?
Hmm.
Like I need to take that energy and put it over here into my business, and I've been doing that lately. And hey, I'm here to tell you that's the difference. Now,
Mm.
if you want to continue to do that other thing, hey,
Yeah.
knock yourself out.
Absolutely.
But once if you can have that mindset change for yourself,
Yeah.
don't who cares what anybody else thinks.
Yeah.
Um, that's when you realize there really is levels to things.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you get to a point where we can be so absorbed with the wrong thing, right?
Yeah,
And then guess what? We become that wrong thing, right? And then the opposite side of it, like you said, we get involved with, let's just say, the right thing, and that's what we become, and that should be what we aspire to, because right now, man, there's so many things that can be in the way. I said be. You said
you
be.
did. See,
Could be. Could
I'm in your
be.
head. I rent space in your head. Kenworth versus Peterbilt. Paul, you and I were talking about this yesterday. Ironically, I'm knowledgeable, or I should say, aware of this topic. Kenworth
Mm,
versus Peterbilt. So I want to raise your awareness about what the central bank digital currency is about to do with your money that's sitting in the bank. Pretty soon, your freedom of spending and managing your own money will be taken. Did you and I not have a conversation about that yesterday? Because you talked about what was going on in Kenya.
yep. Yeah.
Tell the people kind of how. And here we go again, back to Paul's vacation stories. But I love them. I can't get enough of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
My
It's
life is pretty boring. So in Kenya, it's virtually pretty much all digital, right?
Yeah, yeah, man. It's funny. It's interesting. I mean, we've got like I say, Apple Pay, Venmo, and Cash App, or whatever, all these things that we have here. And I don't really use them much. But the one thing that's nice is the credit card when you just tap. I like that. I just discovered that, and these kids were next to me when I did it, and they were like, "Yeah, it's been a couple years or something." I'm like, "Okay, fine, whatever. I'm caught up now." But anyway, so I'm in Kenya, and so the way they hold money, spend money, move around with money, it's all through the cell phone. Okay, so don't let your power go down and your battery go out on your cell phone. Otherwise, you'll be without access to your funds. But what they have is what's called M-Pesa, M-Pesa, and what that is a digital way of being able to use your money. So what you do is, what I did was I had to go take my um, U.S. money, convert it to Kenya shillings, and then take that money, whether it's to the bank or somewhere, and get shillings. Then I had to go to the M-Pesa shop, and then I would give them the money, and then they would put it on my account. So it's on my account. I'd walk around wherever I was going, to the grocery store. As a matter of fact, I think that might have been the first place I used it. I was at the grocery store. I didn't know how to use it. My aunt was with me, and I said, "I'll pay for it." She's like, "Oh, okay." And so they told me how to do it. So the guys was up there ringing up everything. Then you get this amount, 1,500 shillings, whatever it is. I'm like, okay, what do I do? Hit this button. Then you put in the till number is what it's called. It can be a 6-digit number or more. Put that in, and then you put in the dollar amount, put in your password on your phone, and they see it. It's approved. Take your stuff and you go. So everywhere you go, this is how people accept money. So if I'm on the street and I'm selling you food, or let's say purses or whatever it is, jewelry, I have a till number or even my phone number that can be used for you to send me money. Okay. Now, the crazy thing about it was there were areas where they did not accept cash.
Hmm.
So
I'm starting to
yeah,
see a lot of
so
that here.
huh?
I'm starting to see that here.
See that here. And, I mean, I know that what I've heard here, due to fraud, right? They won't accept the cash. Over there, it's corruption, and it's that, someone says, hey, pay me this and I'll do this for you, I'll allow you to go to the zoo, you know,
Right.
because we went to the zoo, we went through the drive-through part, which was amazing. Yeah, that was really amazing. And then we went through the walkthrough, and going through the walkthrough, my phone died on me, right? So I pulled out, it cost me 36, sounds like a lot of money, but it was 3,600 shillings, I think. That comes out to about $35 or less, something like that. Any rate, so I pulled out, I had 3,000 shillings, and they were telling me, no, they won't take it. I'm like, why not? They said, they don't take cash. They don't take cash? Like, no. And I put it away. Somebody else paid my way. And I was like, okay, what's that all about? And they said, well, due to corruption. I'm saying, I'm going to the zoo, you know? And like, yeah, due to corruption, they won't take they don't take cash. And they just, so I don't know if it's that person takes the money and then it just falls in their pocket, you know what I mean? Or what? But yeah, so a lot of places, they don't take
But
cash.
obviously, the corruption gets done with M-Pesa too. You got to say, "Hey, give me $10 for me to let you go to the zoo," right?
Mm, yeah, I
It's
get.
it's an excuse,
Mm, yeah,
and
yeah. I mean,
that's coming here. You lose cash, you lose everything.
mm,
People might not understand or disagree with that, but you're going to live it if it
mm,
happens to you. You're in serious trouble if you lose the ability to have and spend and use cash.
mm. Now, let's say, okay, because I know where you could go with this, or will go with it, or have gone with it. But anyway, so if I have cash, and then same thing, I go to the zoo, regardless of whether it's cash or M-Pesa, whatever, I can give them the cash and it can still walk, or I mean, it walks, or they could say, hey, give me more money, right? And then it walks. Then you have M-Pesa, and I put in that till number. I have to put that number in. Um, that's going to this company, but I don't know how would they. I'm just speaking specifically of that agent that's taking my money. How would they take the money? You know what I mean? How would they?
Well, I would back up to way before that.
Uh,
If you were in a situation where, in a country like Kenya or a country like, say, Indonesia,
hmm,
where you cannot, or China, let's use
hmm.
China, you
Okay.
cannot make anti-government statements, or you're
Right.
a dissident and will be imprisoned.
Right.
You make these statements, whatever, and the government controls the banks, controls whatever, and they just go into your M-Pesa account and wipe it out. Or they put a restriction on it. This person can't spend any money. This person put it into the spending parameters or algorithm that this person can't do this. This person can't do that. You will never even entertain the option of going to the zoo.
Hmm. That basically saying, just in
Your
my
your
terms,
your
yeah.
social score wasn't good enough for last month,
So
so
it
you
locks
lose
you out of
all
certain
entertainment
things.
privileges.
Certain things are you're locked from, is what you're saying. That
Whatever you could dream of could happen.
because that information is there versus if you have cash,
Do
that
whatever you want to
information
do.
is not accessible to deny you, is what you're
Exactly.
saying. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, it's go bigger picture with it, really. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's a kind of off topic of what we were talking about, but I just found it interesting that we were just talking about that yesterday, having that
Yeah, yeah,
conversation.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, Kenworth, I'm not oblivious to it. I've peppered conversations with it here and there in different videos. So yeah, I appreciate your bringing that up. Um, so back to the truck show, we're talking about different stages with different presenters. You had a lot of options. Uh, Clear difference. We're standing in what, the South Hall or whatever, and
Okay.
that's where they have a stage that's kind of open, out
Yeah,
in the open by the trucks. And there's
right.
some Yahoo standing up there spouting a bunch of hateful nonsense about different things. And then we look at each other and we're like, oh, let's just go for a walk and go over here. So we go down the hall and then we walk into that room and here's this guy like giving you the keys to freaking business. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So the East Hall is where the serious conversations take place.
Yeah.
And, the
Yeah.
South Hall is where um, you just get up and,
So it's just yeah.
talk a bunch of crap. Now, there was some good things in the South Hall.
Mhm.
Asian Mai gave his speech there,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was just highly motivating. Like, I
Hmm.
don't know how you could sit through that and not get up and want to go home and just start cranking things out
Hmm.
as
Yeah.
far as social media and in relation to your business.
Yeah.
Got to put a lot more work into that. Um, but yeah,
It's worth
I
it.
highly recommend it. I think next year I'm going to spend a lot more time in that East Hall in those rooms,
Mm.
seeing some different things.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
kind of over the shiny trucks. I could hear a whole lot more of all that.
Well, I mean, I liked, I mean, I don't know because one of them was giving out free food. So I think I have to go back to the
Where
South
was
side.
that?
Huh?
Who was that? I don't
I
see
don't know,
that.
was it Mud some or what was
Oh,
it?
Mudflap. Yeah,
Mud
yeah.
Flat. Yeah, they were giving away some free food. So, every time I walked by each day and there was a meatball, I I had to stop.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
it
So
was good.
it was good. But there was but yeah, and it was for me, I was just a I don't know, like a kid in the sense that it's like, oh, what's this? What's that? What are they doing here? What are they, and saw so much that was being offered because you would tell me, yeah, people love their trucks and they put this kind of money in their trucks. And
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, really? I mean, because I was wondering if it's just where you swoop up your truck and then you just park it, just to show it because I couldn't see myself driving with all that nice stuff, doing work, you know what I mean? With all that
Right.
nice stuff on
You
it.
mean with a hot tub in there?
Oh, that was they had some nice trucks.
Yeah.
They had some nice trucks. I like, yeah, yeah. Those are
Let me
some big
go. Let me go back to the beginning here and just a couple of comments here. Thanks
things.
everybody for all your comments here. I'd like to get Paul talking and just let him go. I don't want to interrupt him a whole lot. Um, Lee George says, "How is the trailer coding working out? So far, so good." I got a call from one driver out yesterday. He said that the trailer didn't seem to be working as hard in the heat. It would just kind of put along in low idle with a frozen load. So that's about what you can hope for right there. And he says it pre-cools faster also. The Rig Pig, thanks for coming in. Snore Lord, here's the man right here. You met the Snore Lord. We had lunch with him one day with
Mhm.
the long hair and beard.
Yeah,
Remember him?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Uh, Cents per mile says, "Is this where I learned pickup lines to work on brokers? Do you have any new secret handshakes or pickup lines for brokers, Paul?"
There's nothing new, in the sense that uh, when you're talking about, man, we do, we're talking about Here's the thing, I'm gonna go all the way back to Kenya again. So, and communicating with people, like I said, man, these people are hustling and what have you. And I'm watching them, listening, and all this stuff. And I'm like, I've heard that line before. You know what I mean? So it's like people all around the world are, again, trying to make it and what have you. And then in dealing with people, me dealing with people and just being open and honest, right? And just like being sincere, not being a fool, you know what I mean, but at the same time knowing that we're all human. Um, Man, I mean, like I say, a broker, they get up in the morning just like anyone else, put on their pants, shirt, whatever, and go to work and try to make it. So I think again, it's definitely about just those relationships, building those relationships. So if I'm communicating with someone, um, trying to establish, I always tell people it's kind of like dating, or any relationship you have, just think about the relationships you have and how did they start? You know, not
Tinder,
everyone's,
Tinder.
yeah, you know,
So the
absolutely.
load board is like Tinder. Is that what you're saying?
I see what you did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There you go. I like that. I see what you did. Yeah. So, it's like you have to. you have to understand that it takes time, but it starts somewhere. And that, if I have this really good, I've got a good friend I've known for over 40 years, right? And what I found out just about 2, 3 years ago, he said he did not like me in the beginning. He said, I didn't like you. He said, it was this kid coming in and, making friends with my friends and whatever else and blah, blah, blah. I didn't know this for 40 years. He said he didn't like me, and I'm like, man, I didn't do anything to you. But, but the point is that, these relationships, they start somewhere and they don't just start like, just everything being perfect, so we have to say the hello, we have to, there's the courting process that goes on and all that good stuff, and eventually, um it goes to the next level. So whether we're talking to a broker, talking to a shipper, talking to whomever, it's about building the relationships and understand there's a process to that. Sales. I mean, here's the thing. I always, and I'm gonna stop doing this. I would tell people, like, they'd ask me about what I do, what the program is, and all that stuff, and then I mentioned to them it, helps them in regards to sales or teaching them this. And then I said, I don't like to use the word sales because sales has a stigma and blah 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 and all. So, you know what it is what it is.
Yeah.
And you can look at sales as a way of that you're trying to scam someone, but that's not it. That's not sales. That's scamming. That's not
Right.
sales, right? So when we're talking about sales, we're talking about something completely different. At least I am. I mean, I'm talking about, building those relationships, developing, where, let me put it to you this way. One has a wife, one has a husband, one has a whomever, you were involved in sales. I guarantee it when you built that relationship. You know what I mean? I mean,
Right.
there's even where when you go on a date, you are being the best you ever.
Mm-hmm.
What you're selling them, is it a scam? Well, I'd probably call it more of a scam than anything, right? you know but there is that salesmanship that goes on, and we do it afraid, you know we do it with confidence, we do it however we do it, but we're working to get to the next level, right? And who knows where it's going to go. Eventually it may turn into something that is great and amazing, and unfortunately sometimes those relationships do break down, break off, or whatever. But again, that sales is all about that, you know so I don't know, dealing with a broker, hey, build relationships. I don't know, that's all I got.
All right. Seems simple.
Yeah.
DB215 in the house. We got to connect again someday. I need to hear about all the things you've been doing behind the scenes there. You're working on some things. Jay's World, tuning in from Nairobi, Kenya as a dispatcher. Do you know this person? Is this real?
Hey, he said, who's it? Jay's World? Is
Jay's
that
World.
Jay's World?
You
Hey,
know,
Jay, or is that his name, Jay?
I
I guess.
guess.
Hey, buddy, no, I don't know Jay, unless I do and didn't know. You know what I mean?
Don't know the name.
Didn't
The
know,
screen
don't
name.
know the name, didn't know what they did or anything like that. I mean, I did meet some people that had to do, like, an Uber guy. He drives trucks, and then I think there was someone else. Maybe they said dispatching. But Nairobi, I don't know, there's 53 million, 58, 7 million people in Kenya, and then in Nairobi, I think there might be 8 million or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, that's cool.
Been dispatching over there since 2015, I guess.
Nice, very nice, great. So is he dispatching there, or is he dispatching
I
here?
don't know. It says dry van and reefers. So
I
I don't know.
mean, yeah, it could be anywhere. Could be anywhere in the world, actually.
Yeah. Tim Rushing says, how do I contact you, Paul? I'm interested in your course.
Ah, oh yeah. Well,
I got
let's
it up
see.
on the screen here. Fr8connect.com or 866-342-0040, extension 109.
That would be it. Yes.
Sound about
And
right?
yeah, well, that sounds about right. And the one thing that, I mean, I got so caught up in what we were talking about, which it's just that I enjoy talking about this stuff. When he says, like, the course, thing about it is that, like, everyone doesn't, I think you might have heard of this. Did you ever hear about this, Adam? There's this place called Silicon Valley, right?
Hmm.
Out in California, right? And there, back in the day, I don't know when it was, 2010 or whatever. I remember I was listening to this podcast, and this guy, and they exist. There's this company he has where he teaches people how to talk to women, right? How to approach them or whatever, right?
Wait,
And
is
it
this a
was,
movie?
no, this is real.
Okay.
This is real. But anyway, so it was these, these young tech guys, and maybe they just didn't have that type of skill set, right? And so he would teach them, train them, or whatever. And he had students that would say, "Hey, this was my success." Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But my point is that everyone doesn't have that skill set, right?
Hmm.
To in regards to sales, doesn't know the process, doesn't maybe never have had that experience, or maybe are afraid of it, or maybe don't have the time, things like that, or whatever. So there may be some people that can just go out there and just go at it and get it done. I don't know. I'm sure of that there are people that are that way. But with the course, we definitely, it positions you to be able to do that. It's not the trying to talk to women and all that stuff. That's not what we do. But how to communicate with these shippers, these carriers, and other things. Not, I mean, it can help you in other areas. I mean, like you've talked about how you've said it's helped you where you've talked to developing those relationships with people who sell trucks,
Buy
right?
trucks, buy trailers, um, all kinds of different things. I just find myself doing those strategies with everything now. It just becomes second nature.
And you know what, man, here's what I'm gonna do. I didn't do this before. I'm gonna do it now because it seems appropriate, man. You're my best student, Adam, and not only are you my best student, I'm very proud of you,
You're
man,
the best
because I
teacher.
mean, huh?
You're
Well,
the
I
best
think,
teacher.
brother, I think about it, and I think, like, because you and I'll have conversations, and you'll tell me like the people you've talked to, and what's going on, and what you found out, or what you've done, and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I always go back to, I remember when we first started talking, and you were like, you pretty much were in your own silo, right? And you didn't really communicate with too many people, because it was like, you know what, I'm gonna do my thing, and I'm gonna stay away from this and that. And that's what you did. And now it seems like everyone around the whole country, people that you may have initiated conversation with, just from the standpoint of whatever it is you're trying to do. But it seems like it's really helped you from the standpoint of not necessarily just trying to grow your business and make all this money, but it seems like you now have sought out to understand things, right? And so when you see things, you don't see them as you would have seen them in a silo, right?
Yeah.
It seems like now you're connecting dots, and it gives you the opportunity to just see a broader picture. Am I
Yeah.
am I wrong, or
No,
does that make
and
sense?
as far as the connections and stuff, I do have this added advantage of YouTube. But with the other things, um, no, you're right. I was in my own head, didn't really try to branch out at all. But it just took, you know, that first time when we were successful, hauling some freight with somebody. Oh, it is possible. And then once I found out it is possible,
Mm,
then it's a matter of, well, okay, let's learn more about this. Open my mind. It was hard to drop all my preconceived notions, but I made myself just, okay, we're done with that. Obviously, I was not fully informed, or
mm,
obviously, I was missing a whole lot of things. And let's just try it this other way. And this other way has been better.
mm. Yeah.
Now, I've had to, realize my own shortcomings and things like that. But hey, I'm not. I love to find things wrong with myself now, because then, then I can find the better way.
Yeah, it's there was somebody I was talking to, actually a shipper, man, and he said he's approaching 70, right? I mean, he sounded like a young guy too. I mean, I just talked to him on the phone, and he was like, all the things that he's going to do or wants to do and what have you. And then he said also, learning. He said, I just believe you just don't stop learning.
Hmm.
He's talking about traveling. That's what we were talking about. We were talking about traveling. And so we weren't even talking about freight, right? We were talking about my trip, but then his experiences, and just, it was just good to hear things that he was saying, right? And um yeah, that's the thing, you want to continue to evolve, and that's allowing yourself to be vulnerable, right? And jump in certain things, and be willing to try and swim, or allow someone to help you along the way, but you got to get in first.
Yeah, and foolish pride will keep people from truly reaching everything they can possibly do. And
Hmm.
I would have been guilty for that if you hadn't have come along.
Hmm.
Foolish pride, um, fear of what other people think,
Hmm.
and just the encouragement to just get out and do it.
Yeah.
At a certain, like when you called me that day and you're like, "Hey, I talked to these two places. They both are ready to talk to you. Here's their numbers." I didn't want to call. I was scared to death. But then I'm like, "Nope. Here's the point. Like right now, going forward, this is the pivotal point of whether I do this or not." So I made myself call.
Yeah.
I probably was, you know, threw up afterwards. I don't know. It was scary. But then I'm like, "Oh yeah, these people, live down the road from me or whatever. They're
Yeah.
just people." Once
Hmm.
you talk to them, but it's a big step.
Hmm.
That's probably an old hat for you. It's not really a big step to call somebody, cold call them, whatever. But to some people, it is when it comes down to that time and have that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, we all cross that step at some point. You know what I mean? I mean, myself, or whatever. At some point, I mean, it's just that our experience of it is can be different. I mean, for me, going back to school, grade school, man, the one thing I didn't like was going door to door when I had to do the fundraisers, right? We had to sell cookies or whatever it was. I just got to a point, it's like, okay, I go to two houses and I feel like I'm done. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go to the next house, the next house, the next house. And then, so I would do that, but I enjoyed once I knocked on the door and they opened the door, then it was like, let's go. You can call it showtime or whatever you want to call it, but it was like, all right, I like this. But the process of getting to that and then knocking on the door, that was like, but when they opened the door, I had no choice, right? And it was like, all right. So as time went on, I don't know, it was just something I really, really enjoyed. And then getting to a point where, you're on a professional job and you have to do this professionally, it was challenging, because I didn't know certain things, like, am I going to say the right thing? Are they going to think I'm stupid and this and that? And I got to a point where it's like, I don't care. And to the point where I allowed them to be my teacher. You know what I mean? I
You didn't
allowed,
know you were supposed to be intimidated or
right.
scared to do it. It was just, this is what I do.
I got to that point where it's like, I allowed myself that, to be vulnerable. You know what I mean? And so when they did answer the phone, I'm like, okay, here's why I'm calling, and let you teach me, and so some kind of way I formulated the conversation where they talked, right?
Hmm.
And then we just got into conversation, and then I'm be like, oh, what is that? What are you talking about? Da, 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 da. And then I'm smarter for the next call. Then guess what? I'm smarter for the next call, right? So I had all these teachers, man. I had thousands of teachers, right? Even if someone didn't want me to call, and they let me know, I don't appreciate you calling me because you're the 100th person in the past minute that's called me, you know, and it's like, then how do you deal with that, But you have to be willing to just go through it, and you learn it. And people are people. What are they going to do? They're going to reach through the phone and do what? No.
Exactly.
So,
Well, we've lost the ability largely to interact with each other anymore because of things like social media,
hmm,
and texting, and um, but you're good at it. I'll give you that.
yeah, texting can, it can work,
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tool
yeah,
like anything else.
yeah, yeah.
But
So,
all right, well, I think we're winding down here. I
okay.
thank everybody for coming in. Is there anything else you wanted to promote or talk about, or?
Yeah, just get opportunity, travel, be open minded, and absorb. And I would say that one of the things too is like I said, I had great tour guides, and so if you're able to go somewhere, know someone, or hey, here's the thing, I guess, know somebody, maybe even here that's from somewhere else, get to know them or whatever. And, you know, and then whenever they go back, go wherever they're from, because I think the experience is so much richer. It's more rich. It's more rich when you get to go and have someone that kind of knows the lay of the land and that can take you around in places that you would never have experienced, and people that you would never have talked to and all that good stuff. But yeah, you get a chance to get involved with people from different places. I say, do that. Do that.
Well said.
Yep.
All right, hang in there for a minute.
Okay.
Everybody, thanks for tuning in, and we will do it again. Have a great day.